It's a great pleasure that I join you today with my keynote presentation on Biotech Today and Tomorrow. I'm Dr. Randy Heyer. I'm the president of the Barack S. Blumberg Institute in the United States, and I'm the former senior vice president of global medical affairs at Moderna. And it's just a pleasure to be here at the Grand Hyatt Seoul at the Medicine Bioforum 2022 to deliver this presentation. It was just a year ago, I was in Seoul at this hotel. I did have the great opportunity to meet with members of the press, with senior government officials and senior doctors and scientists in Korea to help explain the latest data, information about the COVID-19 vaccine and during the Omicron wave. With this, I'm going to give you my presentation about Biotech Today and Tomorrow, and join you afterwards for some closing thoughts. Thank you. Do we live in interesting times? I want to talk about the discovery and the approval of the COVID-19 vaccines as a tool to understand our progress in the biopharmaceutical industry. The absolutely remarkable phase was that only 63 days after the sequence was selected, the vaccines against COVID-19, a disease that did not exist was not described until December of 2019, just a scant few weeks before its sequence discovery. Just 63 days after that sequence discovery, a prototype vaccine entered clinical studies, which is unbelievable and literally miraculous. You can see the timeline here. On January 11th, the Chinese authorities shared the genetic sequence. The sequence for the Moderna vaccine against the novel coronavirus was finalized. In early February, the first clinical batch, including the fill and finishing, was completed. Later in February, the clinical batch was shipped to the NIH for the use in the phase 1 study. March 4th, the IND was filed. And on March 16th, the first participant in the phase 1 study, blistering 63 days from sequence selection, that vaccine entered clinical studies. And of course, what is even more remarkable is that later that year, in the same calendar year, COVID-19 vaccines received emergency use authorization by the US Food and Drug Administration. And that timeline was equally accelerated, and to deliver what I believe was our finest hour in the biopharmaceutical industry, a life-saving protective vaccine against symptomatic COVID-19 in the same calendar year that the sequence was discovered. And what's important today is, what can we learn from that? What can we apply from the effort that was made with the COVID-19 to our biopharmaceutical industry and the products that we're developing now to continue this revolution, this bringing life-saving medicines, important medicines and vaccines to people? And first of all, let's look at some of the changes that occurred in the COVID-19 development. Again, of course, the remarkable finding that the emergency use authorization was issued 12 months after the virus sequence for both the Moderna product and the Pfizer product. Certainly, we saw timelines from initiation of clinical studies to public availability being accelerated. What's important is that the standard principles of efficacy and safety that underpin drug development were followed. And what can we learn from that development of these COVID-19 mRNA vaccines that may enhance our oncology or other biopharmaceutical development studies? Well, one of the features was the transparency and frequent dialogue with drug manufacturers and regulatory agencies, the establishment of frequent communication and information sharing among stakeholders, the increased diversity and inclusivity in the clinical studies that closely align with real-world populations. Indeed, the COVID-19 vaccines were studied in the very populations that were at risk for severe symptomatic COVID-19. I think that's an important message. Barriers were reduced to enrollment by minimizing inclusion and exclusion criteria. Swifter trial initiation, quicker generation of clinical data, faster patient access to novel treatment options. These were all features of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine development story that may help us, and we should apply to the products we're developing today in the biopharmaceutical industry. And of course, yes, remote assessments and telehealth was essential. and obviously a very important way of increasing the access and reducing trial costs, of course, and speed up trials by using remote access telehealth where appropriate. This is a figure from another paper that I'm co-authored, looking at the lessons learned from the evidence generation during a pandemic. Let's just go through that a little bit. One is the importance of operational efficiency. It was clear that the rapid trial initiation and enrollment were feasible and necessary for COVID-19. Robust information sharing and frequent communications with regulatory agencies aided the medical product development. These are all take-home messages that we can and should apply to the development of biopharmaceuticals. Trial design innovation. Platform designs for COVID-19 treatments provide an efficient environment to test multiple interventions. Pragmatic trials can leverage decentralization, embedding or real-world data efficiencies while maintaining benefits of randomization. And data collection should focus on assessments that have a meaningful purpose. Decentralized approaches. Rapid clinical modifications were used to mitigate exposures. Of course, remote assessments are feasible in cancer clinical studies as well as other clinical studies of biopharmaceuticals. Telemedicine, remote monitoring, direct medication shipments can help with accessibility and increase representativeness. Access to the internet, other digital health technology should be assured so further disparities are not introduced, and continuous process improvement is needed to integrate these best practices and mitigate potential data variability. And then with real-world data, of course, there's a distinction between real-world data for descriptive purposes and real-world evidence to support causal interference. Multiple stakeholder collaborations can be rapidly formed to generate high-quality real-world data. Studies using real-world data need not be retrospective. Design approaches can include randomized, prospective, pragmatic designs, and it's imperative to develop a study protocol and statistical analysis plan before a priori each research study. So this key takeaways, sustainability for advancement of studies is that COVID-19 certainly is a catalyst for trial efficiency, novel trial designs, and exploitation of real-world data. The importance of that collaboration I talked about, the multidisciplinary communication and sharing across groups. Equity, increased visibility of health disparities and need for broad opportunities for trial inclusion. And of course, modernization, using prospective, pragmatic studies designs, building infrastructure for improved real-world data collection, evaluate flexibilities available through digital health technologies and remote assessments. These are all key steps going forward. I think finally, to close on the COVID-19 experience, if you look at these two worlds, one in the current model, one world was the features of SARS-CoV-2 vaccine therapeutic development, and then over here in the blue, features of cancer or biopharmaceutical development. And there's some striking contrast between the two. What I'd like to do is focus on where can these two meet together so that we can take from the SARS-CoV-2 development effort and apply it to cancer or biopharmaceutical or cell and gene therapies that are in development now. And I think the things we can think about here are in the middle. And of course, this is also published. We can think about the importance of adapted study design, the overlap between phase 1, 2, and 3 trials, the quick continuous trial enrollment, the frequent communication and information sharing, the importance of diverse and inclusive populations that are reflective of real-world populations where the drug intends to be used, comparable clinical efficacy to real-world evidence, and of course, the ability for fast-track emergency use and reliable accelerated approval. These are all features, I believe, that are in that overlap between what applies perhaps to the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic development and what applies to the development we're doing now with our biopharmaceuticals going forward. Now, shifting gears, I don't think I need to convince you necessarily, but the investment in new medicines is incredible. There's data here. This is from the KRPIA annual report. Investing in a new drug by $1 reduces medical costs by $7, a 7-to-1 ratio. Cost of a new, and similar for hospitalizations, even more dramatic. If the cost of a new drug is $24, it reduces hospitalization costs by up to $89. And I think getting close to home, the benefit of new medicines is not just measured in the dollars, but is measured in people's lives. And this is the cure rate of hepatitis C over 5 generations of drugs that were developed for hepatitis C. This is very important to me because the drug that got us to the end, the 98 to 100% cure rate, was discovered at the institute that I'm the president of now, at the Blumberg Institute. First generation of these drugs were way back in the early part of this century, had a 41% cure rate, interferon, ribavirin, and of course there was toxicity. Second generation, 10 years later, we had improved efficacy, now 63 to 80% cure rates with protease inhibitors and interferon injections. Then to 90% a few years later with polymerase inhibitors and interferon injection, 95 to 96% with fourth generation, looking pretty good, mixed treatment oral therapy. And then finally, from 2016 onward, we had all genotypes mixed treatment with oral therapy, a 98 to 100% cure rate against hepatitis C, which was at one point, hepatitis C was at one point the most common cause of liver transplantation in the United States. And here I know we're talking about cell and gene therapies, and their transformative potential. We can call them advanced therapeutic medicinal products. These are based on genes, tissue, cells, providing new innovative treatments for disease and injury. They have potential to be curative, currently control disease progression, and they are featured with rapid development commercialization underpinned by biological understanding and early proof of concept. And again, I want to think what we can take from the studies we did with COVID-19 in accelerating those approvals and getting those medicines out to people and apply them to our advanced therapeutic medicinal products. So we think about gene therapy, involving the introduction, removal, or change in a person's genetic material to treat or cure a disease, or is it cell therapy that involves the transfer of intact live cells into a patient to treat or cure a disease? And of course, these cells may be from the patient themselves or autologous, or those of a donor, allogenic. And then gene-modified therapy, where both protocols are included. Cells are now genetically modified with new genetic contact outside of the patient, expanded and then re-administered. And what's important in cell and gene therapy, there's a significant growth opportunity. These are FDA statistics here, where if we look at the pipeline by phase, there's currently estimated over 2,900 active programs in cell and gene therapy. And this is broken out by phase. So we have preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Preclinical, of course, has the most programs in it, up to 30% compound annual growth rate from 2018 to 2021. Which is obviously impressive. And of course, what we'd like to do is accelerate our processes, apply what we learned in COVID-19 to get these preclinical programs into the clinic as quickly as possible, and of course, through the clinic and on into make available for people. And of course, the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 are a bit lower, as you might expect, as there's a success rate that goes down, of course, with increasing phase. Nonetheless, the biopharma industry is investing heavily in this class of research because of its broad clinical application to treat a wide range of diseases. And the numbers are impressive. There are 9 therapies approved by FDA today. 10 to 20 per year are expected to be approved by 2025. There's some 900 active programs in clinical studies worldwide. 80% of programs in phase 1 or earlier. IND filings are expected to be 200 per year, and the funding for companies in cell and gene therapy in FY 2020 was $20 billion. Another major accelerant is artificial intelligence and its application to drug development. I think this is one of the most exciting and interesting and areas that can deliver real benefit to patients today. And looking at that, what do we see? There's the 50-10-50, which is the estimate is there's 50 that artificial intelligence can produce 50 novel therapies in 10 years, representing $50 billion in value. There's the cost savings associated with artificial intelligence with earlier identification and treatment of higher risk patients. And this, of course, if we look at the median development time of $1 billion for a new drug, and of course, the true cost is much higher because of abandoned trials and clinical failures, a 20 to 40% reduction in costs alone using AI could fund 4 to 8 novel molecules. Artificial intelligence information can come from genomic data, health records, medical imaging, and other patient information. Using the AI with all these data can produce better outcomes in trials, help develop drugs faster, greater earlier stage chance of success. And advanced data analysis, richer data sets would lead us to earlier detection, faster diagnosis for people with disease. And of course, an important step in AI will be how is it valued by investors. And I think there is a near-term opportunity with data-enhanced diagnostics that's available today. Of course, investors need solid evidence for AI-enabled drug discovery, and I think there's some inflection points coming from drug trials over the next few years. And the collaboration between AI drug developers and large biopharma will be important, and we are seeing some concrete steps forward with biopharma partnerships as proof of validation. Mark my word, AI is here. It's going to be a factor, and it's going to be transformative. And finally, coming back to Korea, the Korean pharmaceutical industry, these are data, of course, from the KRPIA, very nice growth from 2016 to 2019, from 21 trillion won to 24 trillion, and with very nice growth rate here, 63.4% from 2016 to 2020, going from 36 trillion won to 99.6 trillion won in pharmaceutical export performance by year. So with that, I want to thank you for this opportunity to cover a little bit about what we learned from the COVID-19 vaccine studies, how we can apply those to accelerate and improve drug development for our biopharmaceuticals, for our cell and gene therapies, the use of artificial intelligence, and we can do more to bring life-saving medicines, life-transforming medicines to the people who need them. And thank you for that opportunity to talk about biotech today and tomorrow. I really believe that COVID-19 and the development of the vaccines was perhaps our finest hour in the biotech industry. I'm very proud of our contributions. I'm also very pleased to see Korea becoming a strategic location for biotech firms, research centers, and a hub for producing vaccines and treatments for COVID-19 based on your advanced manufacturing capabilities and capacity. Of course, we're looking beyond COVID-19 into cell and gene therapy, discovery of artificial intelligence, and other aspects. And I think Korea is just so well positioned. And I'm really looking forward to hearing, reading more, and perhaps visiting you to see and touch and learn about all the wonderful things that are taking place in the biotechnology industry in Korea as we advance forward. Remember, we're doing this not just for our economy, but also for the people that benefit so much from the innovations and medicines and therapies and vaccines that we make and produce and bring to them to better their lives. Thank you.